that I've tried to help people understand is that you actually have to first learn to be selfish, to be selfless. Because the selfless, inverted commas, version that most people lean into is actually selfish, because it's about making them feel good. So it's got nothing to do with the other person.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Aldon, and today we're diving into a topic that almost everyone struggles with: saying no without feeling guilty. Today, I'm with someone who's guided countless people, from top executives to everyday individuals, towards real emotional freedom. He's the founder of Integrative Coaching and the author of The Infinite Spark. Warren Munitz is recognized as a leading executive and life coach who helps people master their inner world, combining mindfulness, psychology, and deep self-awareness. Through his work, he's noticed a universal pain. People can't say no without guilt, and that leads to burnout, resentment, and disconnection from self. His aim is to help clients resolve that, and his bigger vision, his game, is to make emotional intelligence and self-awareness accessible to everyone. Now, before we dive into it, don't forget to like, subscribe, smash that notification bell. Warren, can we get into it?
Sure,
Okay.
Let's do it.
Why do so many people struggle to say no? What's really happening beneath that feeling of guilt or fear when trying to set boundaries?
So if you think about how the personality learns how to belong. So it's not everyone that has struggles. Some people with a specific personality type have no problem saying no. However, there's a lot of the personality types that will struggle because saying no means rejecting belonging. It's causing some type of conflict within the dynamic. So from early childhood, if you are saying no, I mean, you hear children saying no all the time, but certain personality types will lean into wanting to please to get approval. And so that's usually the personality type which struggles to say no. They're conflict avoidant. They'll try to keep the peace to, get along to go along to get along. And being the helper, or being the savior.
Yes.
So they feel very needed when they say, yes, I can help you with this. It makes them feel good. It makes us all feel good a lot of the time when we say yes, as opposed to no. The challenge with that is it comes with what you mentioned.
So perhaps we can dive a little bit deeper into the childhood aspect that you just touched on. And really the question is this difficulty something we learn early on, which I think you just mentioned? And how much of our people-pleasing behavior do you think comes from childhood conditioning or needing approval?
So the different theories around when the personality starts. Some are that you're born with the personality and it gets reinforced over time. Others are that the birth process itself causes the pattern of the personality, then that gets reinforced over time. And so if we look, when it starts, it's early childhood, sometime in early childhood, that then gets reinforced over and over and over. And we tend to feel safe in the personality that, in the environment that we found ourselves in, created that safety for us when the safety wasn't there enough. So we can look at the, Almas talks about the holding environment of that time. If the holding environment is a certain way, as in it's not holding you, then your personality would come forward and we would start to develop certain habits to make us feel safe in that environment. That becomes the structure that you then think of as yourself. You go, oh, but that's me. That's actually not, that's just the habit. That's the pattern that you've used to feel safe. And it's crazy to even think about it.
It is crazy to think about it. And it's given me a whole different perspective on how I would think about that. But can we move on? So you've said that boundaries, well, aren't walls. They're expressions of self-respect. So can you expand on that idea and how someone can start seeing boundaries as healthy rather than selfish?
So there's one thing that I've tried to help people understand is that you actually have to first learn to be selfish, to be selfless. Because the selfless, inverted commas, version that most people lean into is actually selfish, because it's about making them feel good. So it's got nothing to do with the other person. It's really about making them feel better. I help you because it makes me feel good, which means I wasn't really feeling good before I helped you. And then I just repeat the cycle because that's how I get my validation or approval, for example. When it comes to healthy boundaries, the boundary is learning to first see where that boundary is. Where at the moment do you have it? Maybe your boundary includes other people for now. And so if you go and say no to one of them, then this whole ecosystem feels like it's out of balance. So you don't feel comfortable. But actually you're carrying a lot of their experience with you, which is not yours to carry. And it actually disrespects them because it doesn't see them as another person. It sees them as a limb of yours.
Can I stop you? That is such a shift for me. I mean, that is absolutely spot on, actually. Okay, it's a bit of an enlightened moment there for me. Let me just enjoy it here for a second.
Enjoy.
Sorry, brilliant. Please carry on.
So when it comes to saying no, you have to really be honest with yourself about what your capacity is, what you're really feeling. Do you remember the very first time? Maybe you haven't said no yet, but do you remember the very first time that you went, actually, I don't want to do this. I don't want to help.
I actually do. Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Early childhood. So.
Okay. Yeah. And then did you betray that when you realized that you were saying yes when you meant no? Or did you stick to saying no?
I went in with honesty, but I suppose I already got a response that I wasn't anticipating.
Okay. So let me give you my example. I remember when I realized I could say no to my friends who wanted to go out clubbing. And I was driving, I was on my way, and I was like, I really don't feel like this. Like, I really don't. Like, I don't even, why am I doing this? And I remember coming down Strand Street, and I thought, I'm not going to go. I got to the bottom of Strand Street, turned around, and went back home. And I felt so liberated because I realized that space wasn't for me anymore. But I had been feeling that way for a year, or who knows how long. But I wasn't listening to, what was right for me. And I felt that saying no, I would fall out of favor. And that was the risk. But for my own mental well-being and my own emotional well-being, saying no became
so important. I mean,
it was the only choice.
I totally get that. And if you don't mind, I want to stop you there because I wanted to explore that a little bit deeper on a little bit later on during this. So are there, or what are some early warning signs that we're saying yes, when we actually mean no. So are there specific physical, emotional?
So let's say the warning sign maybe that you can become aware of is after you say yes, do you start noticing conversation about what's happening in your head?
Definitely.
Where you go, maybe I should have said no, and maybe I should have said yes. Actually, I don't want to do this.
It's the internal argument that starts.
The moment you see that, the moment you notice it, you should be, what is happening here? Why isn't there alignment? Why isn't there congruence? If that has been happening for so long, you probably don't even know that that's happening, but you might start noticing constriction in your chest. You feel like,
yes.
Am I getting enough oxygen?
Yes.
I'm feeling a little bit anxious. I'm feeling a little bit depleted.
Yes.
A couple of years down the line of this, and you experience stress, burnout, fatigue.
Yes. I get it. And it makes complete sense. So
when you start paying attention, you realize the signs have always been there.
I think when we start to normalize those contradictions or those internal arguments, and then it becomes normal, I think that's the trap, because then you just think that that's who I am, or that's my personality, or like whatever it might be.
That's who I am. That's the one that gets most people.
Yeah.
Where I say, have a look at this, and they go, no, I've always done it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah.
But do you want to look at what's really driving that?
Absolutely.
Maybe. No. Just watch how the body responds to things. It's important.
I got you. So if you're enjoying this conversation, please don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends or people that you know will find true value in this. Warren, let's talk about guilt for a second here, because isn't it? It's the emotional trap here. Why does guilt show up so strongly, even when we're doing what's right for us? So, and what's the best way to move through that, without backtracking?
Yeah. So to generalize, we feel guilt. Guilt comes from so many different places. It could be indoctrinated through religion or culture or just your family upbringing. So imagine someone's parent who has a certain personality type that is manipulative. So then they manipulate their children to get them to behave in a certain way. And obviously, I believe parents must do this anyway to some degree, otherwise you just live in chaos. But there is a line that's healthy, and then there's a line that's not healthy. So when you start manipulating to receive love, to get love, control, then what would be instilled is that the child doesn't get approval and attention if they don't do what mommy or daddy says. And so what happens over time is that the parent withholds love, and then the child experiences a loss of love when they want to be independent. So the independence then comes at a cost, and it comes at a cost anyway.
Sure.
Because if you think about the baby that wants to go into mommy's arms and then wants independence and wants to walk by itself and then wants to go into mommy's arms, and it goes up and down. This is called, Melanie Klein called it the separation individuation process, where you go between love and anxiety, love and merging, but then also feeling claustrophobic and wanting to be your own person, and then disconnecting from the mother, the origin of love, which is obviously a delusion, but experienced that way because the child doesn't know that love exists within it and identifies the mother as the origin of love. So then when it has a walk around the corner, then doesn't see mommy, then feels totally frightened and then comes running back. And so that distance, that game it plays with itself, that's how we start to learn how to be independent. But then as that goes on, there's a natural version of that. But as that goes on, if the parent doesn't allow that, so let's say the mother feels very attached to the child and then doesn't let the child learn for itself and comes in and saves all the time, then what does the child start to believe about itself, about its own capability? That gets influenced. So then this can snowball. So the child says, no, I want to do this way. And then the mother withdraws love, attention, and the child feels guilty.
What an absolutely vicious cycle.
Right.
And I can see how something like that, especially maybe starting from early childhood, can compound so dramatically. So
there was a study that was done which showed that no matter what type of parenting style you use, your child is going to end up with some type of psychological disorder. So it's not a matter of blame. It's just a matter of observation and then understanding that these are the things that we need to grow through. We need to be able to liberate ourselves from to become healthy, to become more balanced. Just the natural maturing process. I think that our culture doesn't teach that. And so we see it as a problem. And then we pathologize everyone.
yes.
As opposed to going, well, no, it's just a natural process of maturing.
Yeah.
And we need to get out of that narcissistic pattern and go beyond it. Both parents and children, eventually.
Again, many profound things you've said here. It's given me a lot to think about. But one thing that does sort of jump to mind is I can see how different cultures, especially how families and family dynamics act within cultures, are so different, and obviously, has the effect.
Often even the difference, though, ends up creating the same few psychological experiences that we go through. Approval, recognition, needing to be seen, etc.
But it seems, as you were saying, if you learn or develop the tools on how to deal with it, it doesn't matter what came before, because you're just correcting and you're going forward. So it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Okay.
Because you're taking ownership of your experience.
Yes.
And isn't that a wonderful thing? To be independent, to feel that capability.
Absolutely. So master of our own destiny. If you're finding this conversation valuable, take a quick moment to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. It really helps us reach more people who are ready to grow in self-awareness and emotional mastery. Couple more questions, Warren, please. Sure. So many of your clients are leaders and executives. How can setting boundaries actually improve performance and relationships at work rather than harm them? Maybe you mentioned a little bit before about clarity, trust, burnout prevention, and better communications.
So let's just narrow that down, please, for me. Just tell me what's the first question?
So we would say, so in a work perspective now, not talking about a social environment, just cleanly for a work environment, same thinking. How can setting boundaries actually improve performance and relationships at work?
So imagine someone who is working until 2:00 in the morning. And I would say that there's a boundary aspect that could be worked on. Why are you working till 2 in the morning? Are you being overloaded with work? Are you not saying no? Because what happens at 2:00 in the morning? Do you think you'd be you're going to be doing great work at 2 o'clock in the morning? Probably not. If you aren't sleeping, your quality of work is going to decline. Your efficiency is going to decline and your performance is going to decline. So if you think about a 7-hour day, no, let's say sleeping for 7 hours and having maybe a 12-hour day or having an 18-hour day, the work that you're going to do in those last 6 hours, more than likely, are going to be so inefficient that they're not going to be worth the loss of sleep.
Agreed.
So, because the next morning, what do you think your next day is going to be like with now no sleep?
Yes.
So now your efficiency just keeps declining. And so over time, you get a diminishing return on your performance, on your clarity, on your sanity, on everything.
True.
So if it is a conversation that needs to happen where you say no, say, look, I'm loaded with work at the moment. I'm not going to be able to get to this. Is there any way that we can delegate any other aspects of the work that I'm doing? Or can you pass this on to someone else? Or can we prioritize and triage what's happening? Because then you're going to get the best performance. Everyone's actually going to be happy. And if your manager doesn't, or your leader doesn't understand that, it's probably because they zoomed in a little bit too much on the detail of what's happening in the moment, as opposed to the bigger picture. Because if you zoom out and you see the bigger picture, you want to continue working, you probably want that staff member to be happy and healthy and alive for the long run.
100%. If I can just interrupt there for a second. So, and that works great in theory. And I think most reasonable people would understand that that is how it is. But in a day-to-day, especially in a high-pressured work environment where putting out fires is commonplace, maybe, and within those...
Why are you putting out fires if you're not a fireman?
Well, let's just...
And if that is the situation you're in, and life and business is always like that, then I would say you don't have enough systems in place.
Agreed.
And the culture or the way you're operating needs to be looked at, because it means
Agreed.
that you can't switch off ever.
Agreed. But let's just say you're someone who's not a decision maker like in your team. You're not the team leader. You're in your team and you try to do the best you possibly can and to achieve the most that you can. In that situation, you can't affect the decision of the group, and you certainly can't tell your team leader to calm down and take a breath. And
Okay.
in that situation, have you got any advice on how to manage that type of situation without creating further internal damage within the team itself, upsetting others, but still navigating your way in a more graceful way to a position where you need to be?
So there's managing downwards, there's also managing upwards. And if you so the situation you described, I'd need more context.
Okay.
So let's say you're saying you're in the situation, the fire is now,
Yes.
It's happening, there is no way out, you have to work late. Right. More than likely, there's going to be a lull. That's not the time to have the conversation. That's the time to actually just do the work. Because managing upwards there, that's not going to be useful at all. What's useful there is, yes, we can get through this, we can do it together. When the next lull happens, which always will happen,
Yes.
in that lull, you have a space. That's the time where you go to your manager and you say, I've been looking at the pattern that we're going through as a team, and I see that the quality of work seems to decline during this and this and this, and this is what I propose. How can we get a jump on these types of experiences so that this doesn't happen and we get enough sleep and we're not here until 2 o'clock in the morning? This is why. This is what I've noticed in my own performance. I work till 2, but then I come in the next day, I'm exhausted. I actually can't work. I get through in 3-4 hours what would normally take me 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
When your manager is open to listening, that's the time to have the conversation. That's the most fruitful time.
So Warren, I could go on for hours, but I've got maybe one or two more questions to wrap up. Fascinating. So for someone who's completely new to this and feels anxious about disappointing others, what's one simple daily practice they could start using to strengthen their ability to say no confidently?
Seek mild disapproval. So seek disapproval that's just mild in situations that are safe. So if your boss says to you, listen, I want you to finish this by the deadline, don't say no. Don't do it at those times. Do it at times where the person you're doing it to might be your equal, and they ask for something like, can I borrow your stapler? And you say, actually, no, I think it's time you got your own. You don't actually have to follow through with that, but just say it and experience the impact that it has on your feeling. And wait, pause, allow yourself to be uncomfortable, to see that you're not going to die when you say no.
It's almost like getting the toes in the water, just
Exactly. Just seek mild disapproval.
I love it. I think it's a great suggestion. Final reflection.
Yeah.
If there's one takeaway you would want people to remember the next time guilt kicks in after saying no, so feeling guilty after you've said no, what would it be?
What would what be? The insight?
Yes.
I'd say the practice is lean into the discomfort. Lean into the feeling, recognize the feeling that there's guilt. Try to see if you can recognize the belief that is causing it. And then instead of doing anything about it, just become aware of it, like you're watching a movie. You're watching a movie play out. You have no control over the movie, but you don't have to get up. You don't have to react. You don't have to do anything. You can just watch it play out. So watch the guilt feeling play out, see what happens, see what thoughts or what beliefs you have around that feeling, but don't react to it. Just be with it. Don't judge yourself for having it. Don't go into a story about it. Don't try to figure it out so that you can get out of the feeling. Just notice what beliefs are there, what thoughts are there. So it's just witness.
Wow, Warren, that was powerful. So thank you. I think what really stands out is that boundaries aren't about rejection. They're about honesty. And for anyone listening, if this resonates with you and you want to dive deeper into emotional intelligence or self-mastery, visit integrativecoaching.co.za to explore Warren's programs and resources. And remember, saying no to what drains you is saying yes to your peace, your truth, and your growth. Thanks for tuning in, Warren. Thanks so much. And
You're welcome.
See you in the next episode.
100%. See you next time.